Bryce Westbrook stood on that conference table like he was announcing the next iPhone launch. Except instead of unveiling some revolutionary product, he pointed straight at me and announced, "Gerald, you're done. This company needs to shed its legacy baggage." Just like that, 16 years of keeping North Star Defense Solutions running smooth as submarine operations, and I got terminated in front of 30 people while the kid adjusted his designer glasses and called it strategic modernization. I'm Gerald Hudson. Most folks call me Jerry, 50 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, I was Senior Operations Director at North Star. Used to being the key phrase here. I didn't argue, didn't even stand up from my chair, just reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the dual authentication tokens I'd carried for over a decade. Two small devices that looked like fancy key fobs but controlled access to every critical system North Star operated. Slid them across that polished conference table like a poker player folding a winning hand and said, "Good luck with the modernization." Bryce smirked like he'd just disrupted an entire industry. What he didn't know, what nobody in that boardroom knew, was that those tokens weren't just access devices. They were hardwired into every department of defense protocol North Star maintained. Whole integrity for our entire operation, you might say. See, Bryce wasn't built for this business. He was manufactured in a trust fund factory, got his MBA from Stanford, and spent 5 years bouncing between tech startups that burned investor money faster than a submarine takes on water through a hull breach. When his father Charles stepped back for some executive coaching program, the board reluctantly named Bryce interim CEO. Kid immediately started calling himself a transformation catalyst and referring to our established procedures as legacy friction. Then came what he called the optimization initiative. Started that Monday by eliminating our entire institutional knowledge department, 3 people with a combined 80 years of defense contracting experience. Next, he slashed our training budget and fired 2 remote workers over video call, cutting their audio mid-sentence when they tried to explain transition protocols. But I was the main target. Bryce needed a scalp that people would recognize, someone who represented what he called resistance to innovation. He wanted to prove that the old guard was finished, that his generation could run complex defense operations like a Silicon Valley startup. So he took me out like decommissioning a submarine loudly, publicly, with maximum ceremony. I walked past the reception desk, past the shocked junior staff, past that motivational poster I'd always ignored, "Innovation drives excellence," and straight to my truck. Didn't drive home immediately. Sat in that parking garage checking my compass, an old habit from my Navy days. The needle pointed true north, same as always. Some things don't change just because someone decides they're outdated. Then I opened my glove compartment and pulled out the black folder I'd kept there for situations exactly like this. Defense protocols, system authentication matrices, federal compliance documentation. This wasn't some personal revenge file. This was institutional memory in document form. 16 years ago, when North Star was still operating out of converted warehouse space, Charles Hudson trusted me with access that didn't come with corner offices, just massive responsibility. I was the designated systems custodian on all federal paperwork and the guy who actually maintained our security clearance status in practice. I'd stayed overnight during the cyber attack in 2020, manually switching backup systems while automated diagnostics ran their cycles. When federal inspectors said our server configuration violated 3 different DoD protocols, I spent 2 weeks negotiating compliance extensions. When vendors threatened contract suspension over billing disputes, I smoothed things over with relationships built across decades. I had signing authority on defense contracts, security certifications, and compliance documentation that Bryce didn't even know existed. More importantly, I had the vendor relationships and institutional knowledge to make those signatures actually mean something. Let him play CEO. Let him fire experienced people and lecture everyone about digital transformation. He just eliminated the one person who knew where all the pressure points were located. My front door always stuck slightly. Foundation settled during that 2019 earthquake, and I never bothered getting it fixed. Kind of like that it pushed back when something wasn't aligned properly. I kicked it open, dropped my gear by the coffee machine, and sat at my kitchen table. Wasn't angry yet, just quiet. There's a specific kind of silence that happens when something you've built gets handed to someone who thinks compliance is just another software subscription. I went to the hall closet and reached behind my old dress uniforms, pulled down a red folder that hadn't seen daylight since our last federal audit. Inside was everything Bryce forgot to ask about during his streamlining presentation. Vendor authorization codes, DoD compliance matrices, security clearance documentation hierarchies, and on page 1 in official Pentagon letterhead, Gerald Hudson, designated systems custodian for North Star Defense Solutions Federal Contractor Certification. When you don't demand executive parking spaces or company cars, people forget what they've actually signed. But I remembered every late-night conference call with Pentagon auditors, every emergency system patch, every compliance deadline I'd met, while everyone else focused on quarterly projections. My signature wasn't just on internal documents, it was registered with 4 federal agencies as primary contact for security verification. The Navy taught me that supply chains and logistics networks are only as strong as their most critical connection point. Turned out I wasn't just a connection in North Star's chain. I was the master coupling holding everything together. You don't just remove the master coupling, you transition it properly, you document the handover, you spend weeks training replacement personnel, you maintain operational continuity. But Bryce wanted headlines, not process. He wanted disruption theater, not operational stability. So I started making calls. First call was to Rebecca at Secure Vault Systems. She answered on the second ring, voice already tight with concern. Jerry, thank God. We've been getting authentication failures since this afternoon. What's happening over there? I kept it simple and professional, just letting you know I'm no longer authorized for system overrides on the Tier 5 servers. Dead silence, then. But your credentials are still primary contact on our federal portal. You're listed as the compliance verification officer. Not my problem anymore, Rebecca. You'll need to contact someone else at North Star. We don't have anyone else in our system with proper clearance levels. I could hear her typing frantically. Rebecca had managed our hosting relationship for 7 years. She understood how defense contracts worked. One missing signature could freeze millions in billing cycles. Jerry, this is serious. If we can't verify compliance status, we have to suspend services pending full audit. That's a federal requirement, I understand. You should probably call North Star directly. We tried. Got transferred to someone named Jason, who told us he'd circle back and hung up. Second call was to Wayne at Advanced Components, our primary supplier. He actually laughed when I explained my situation. That explains the dashboard alerts we've been seeing. Someone tried rebooting your authentication server around 4 p.m., locked the whole system down. They what? Yeah, looks like they thought it was a regular Windows machine. Just hit restart when the access card started throwing errors. Now, it's stuck in safe mode and won't accept administrative commands. Wayne had installed our security infrastructure back when we moved into the current facility. Former Army Signal Corps, knew his way around both military and civilian protocols. We'd worked together through 3 major upgrades and countless maintenance cycles. Here's the thing, Jerry. Your biometric signature is hard-coded into the root authentication matrix. Even if I wanted to help them, I can't create new admin access without your physical presence for retinal verification. How long until system timeout? 120 hours. Then it goes into complete lockdown mode. After that, we're looking at total reinstall, new hardware, new everything. Probably 8 weeks minimum, assuming they can get federal approval for replacement components. I made notes in my folder. Not for revenge, just tracking the cascade effects. When you remove one critical component from a complex system, everything else starts failing in predictable sequences. Third call was to Lisa at our facilities contractor. She was already frustrated before I explained my situation. The environmental system's been acting crazy all afternoon. Temperature sensors giving bad readings, backup generators won't accept remote commands. That's because environmental control ties into the same authentication network as everything else. Can you walk me through override procedures? Lisa, I don't work there anymore. You'll need North Star authorization. We tried. They said you were the only one with administrative access to facility systems. That was the pattern. For 16 years, I'd been central point of contact for every vendor relationship, every compliance requirement, every system that kept North Star operational. Not because I was controlling, but because that's how you maintain security in federal contracting. One person signs, one person takes responsibility, one person can be held accountable. Bryce thought he was firing middle management. What he actually did was pull the master valve out of a nuclear reactor and hand the pieces to someone who'd never seen the inside of an engine room. Wednesday morning, 7:45 a.m., exactly 36 hours after my termination, the first pressure wave hit. I wasn't there to witness it, but Patricia, our receptionist, called me from her personal phone. Jerry, it's chaos here. Nobody can access the building. Badge readers just keep beeping at everyone. Bryce is in the parking lot screaming at his phone. The overnight security guard had gone home at 6 a.m. like always. Automatic lock system was supposed to restore badge access at 7 a.m. Instead, it stayed in secure mode because the authentication server couldn't verify any administrative users. 340 employees standing outside in business attire, clustering around badge readers like confused tourists at a locked monument. Shane Murphy, our head of security, and probably the most competent guy in the building, tried explaining the situation to Bryce over speakerphone. We can't provision new badge access until we transfer master authentication credentials from Jerry's account. So do it, Bryce demanded. We can't, sir. Jerry was root administrator. Only he can create new administrative accounts without triggering federal security protocols. Can't you bypass it somehow? He designed it specifically to resist unauthorized access. It's compliant with DoD, cybersecurity frameworks, and NIST tamper-resistant standards. If we try to bypass it, the system flags us as potential security breach and notifies federal oversight. By 9:30 a.m., someone had called a locksmith. Professional guy took one look at the badge readers and shook his head. These aren't mechanical locks, son. This is fully integrated electronic security infrastructure. I can't just drill these out without setting off alarms from here to Washington. Bryce finally called the fire department, claiming it was an emergency evacuation issue. Fire chief, former Marine named Rodriguez, took about 30 seconds to size up the situation. Son, this isn't fire emergency. This is management problem. Your people can get out of the building just fine. They just can't get back in. Maybe next time don't fire your security administrator without reading the technical manual first. Building stayed locked until 3 p.m. when Rebecca from Secure Vault drove over with emergency access device she kept for situations exactly like this. Cost North Star $8,000 in emergency service fees just to unlock their own front door by Thursday. The real bleeding started. Not dramatic stuff like locked doors, but quiet financial hemorrhaging that kills companies slowly. Payroll hit complications first. Not because money wasn't available, but because automated systems couldn't verify routing authorization for direct deposits. Every electronic payment required dual authentication, one from finance director, one from designated federal compliance officer. That second signature was supposed to come from me. Janet from finance called Thursday morning, voice tight with stress. Jerry, I know this is awkward, but we need your authorization token for payroll processing. System won't complete without dual verification. Janet, I don't work there anymore. You'll need to update authorization matrix. That's what I told Bryce. He said to just override it somehow. Had to smile at that. You can't override federal banking regulations with management enthusiasm. Those protocols exist for specific reasons. What reasons? Sarbanes-Oxley compliance. Every federal contractor must maintain separation of financial authority. One person controls money, another person verifies transactions. If both signatures come from same authorization level, it triggers audit flags. Janet went quiet. She'd been processing payroll for 5 years, but never had to understand underlying compliance architecture. Why would she? That was my job. How long do we have? Payroll processors give you 96 hours to resolve authentication issues before they freeze accounts. After that, you're looking at manual check processing for 340 people. Friday morning brought the procurement crisis. Our primary supplier, Advanced Components, suspended all shipments pending customer verification review. Their automated system flagged North Star as compliance risk. Issue was straightforward. Purchase orders required verification from designated custodial officer before shipment. For 8 years, that had been me. Now my digital signature was orphaned in their system, still required for authorization, but no longer valid for new transactions. Steve Rodriguez, their account manager, called to explain the situation. We'd worked together since 2019, building relationship that had saved North Star roughly $300,000 in rush delivery fees over the years. Jerry, I want to help, but our compliance department won't budge. Your company fired their verified signatory without updating our authorization database. From our perspective, you guys are operating without proper financial controls. That's because we are, Steve. Can't someone else just sign the forms? Not without going through full vendor qualification process again, new background checks, new federal verification, new credit review. You're looking at 8 to 12 weeks minimum. What about emergency authorization? Emergency status requires approval from your federal oversight officer. Since North Star is flagged as non-compliant, they won't grant emergency status. Steve sighed. Jerry, off the record, this whole thing looks suspicious from outside. Companies don't usually fire their compliance officers unless something's wrong. My legal department is wondering if you guys are under investigation. That hit like ice water. The optics were terrible. From vendor perspective, North Star had suddenly terminated their primary financial oversight officer with no transition plan. In federal contracting world, that kind of move screams fraud investigation or bankruptcy preparation. Monday brought the call I'd been expecting. Pentagon Logistics Command Legal Department. Mr. Hudson, this is Jennifer Walsh from Pentagon Legal. We're conducting compliance verification review regarding the North Star defense contract and would appreciate a few minutes of your time. Jennifer was thorough and professional, asked specific questions about my role, termination circumstances, current access status. I answered everything honestly, Mr. Hudson. According to our records, you were verified custodial officer for all federal contractor certifications. Is that correct? Yes. And you were terminated without formal transition of those responsibilities. That's correct. Are you aware of any compliance violations or irregularities that might have prompted your termination? No. I was fired for being legacy baggage according to the interim CEO. Long pause. I see. And in your professional opinion, does North Star currently have proper custodial oversight for federal contracting requirements? No, they don't. Another pause. Thank you for your transparency, Mr. Hudson. We may have follow-up questions. Tuesday morning, the hammer fell. Pentagon Procurement Office sent formal notice to North Star. Contract negotiations suspended pending compliance verification review. The $380 million logistics contract, representing roughly 45% of North Star's annual revenue, was officially on hold. Bryce called emergency staff meeting. I wasn't there, but Patricia filled me in later. He stood in same conference room where he'd fired me and tried explaining why their biggest client had just walked away from negotiating table. This is temporary misunderstanding, he told assembled staff. Pentagon is being overly cautious about some paperwork issues. We'll have this resolved within the week. Andrew Kumar, our IT director, raised his hand. Bryce, if this is just paperwork, why don't we fix it? We're working on it. Who's working on it? Jerry was our compliance officer. We don't need Jerry. We can handle this internally. With who you fired the only person who knew how compliance systems worked? Bryce's face went red. We'll figure it out. That afternoon, North Star's stock price dropped 18% on news of Pentagon contract suspension. Financial press picked up the story. North Star Defense loses major contract amid compliance concerns. Local business reporters started investigating timeline. They found the sequence: compliance officer terminated Monday, major contract suspended Tuesday. Optics were devastating. Charles Westbrook, the founder, cut his executive coaching program short and flew back from whatever leadership retreat he'd been attending. By Thursday, he was back in building having quiet conversations with board members and looking like man who just discovered his ship was taking on water. Final board meeting wasn't on any public calendar. No corporate communications, no press releases. This was the kind of meeting that happens behind closed doors with phones left outside and voices kept deliberately low. I knew about it because Peter Walsh, general counsel, called me Friday evening. Jerry, I need to ask you some questions for the board. Can you come in Monday morning, 9 a.m.? Am I being subpoenaed? No, nothing like that. We just need your professional assessment of current situation. I showed up wearing my dress blues. Navy taught me that presentation matters when stakes are high. Boardroom felt different than during my firing. Quieter, more serious. Charles Westbrook sat at head of table, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Bryce was there, flanked by legal counsel and what looked like stack of documentation with my name highlighted throughout. Peter started with basics. Jerry, can you walk us through your role as systems custodian? For 25 minutes, I explained compliance architecture I'd built over 16 years, federal contractor requirements, vendor authorization matrices, financial oversight protocols. Board listened without interrupting, taking notes. When you were terminated, was there any transition of these responsibilities? No. I was told to clean out my desk and leave immediately. One board member leaned forward. Mr. Hudson, in your professional opinion, can North Star currently fulfill its federal contracting obligations? No, sir. Not without significant remediation and recertification. How significant? 8 to 12 months minimum. New background checks, new vendor qualifications, new federal oversight approval, and that's assuming no compliance violations are found during review process. Charles asked the question I'd been expecting: what would it take to fix this quickly? You'd need me to come back and execute proper transition. But even then, damage to vendor relationships and client confidence would take years to repair. Bryce finally spoke up. This is all being blown out of proportion. We can hire consultants to handle the paperwork. Peter slid folder across table. These are estimates from 3 different compliance consulting firms. Minimum cost, $4.2 million. Timeline, 18 to 24 months, and that's with no guarantee federal agencies will accept the transition. Room went quiet. You could hear the HVAC system cycling, same system that was still throwing temperature alerts because nobody knew how to reset authentication protocols. There's one more thing, Peter continued. SEC has opened preliminary inquiry into Pentagon contract suspension. They want to understand why major federal contractors suddenly terminated their compliance officer without documentation. Charles's face went gray. Are we under investigation? Not yet, but optics are terrible. Companies don't usually fire their oversight officers unless something's wrong. SEC is wondering what we're hiding. Board session continued for another hour without me. I waited in lobby reading magazines and watching employees hurry past with nervous energy of people who know layoffs are coming. Charles found me there around noon. "Jerry, I want to apologize. What Bryce did was wrong, and the way he did it was inexcusable." "I appreciate that, Charles. I also want to offer you your job back. Full reinstatement, VP level promotion, whatever it takes." I'd been expecting this conversation. "Charles, I can't come back." "Why not? We need you." "Because in 6 months or a year, when things stabilize, Bryce or someone like him will decide I'm dead weight again. I can't build my career around someone else's definition of my value." Charles nodded slowly. "What if I guaranteed that wouldn't happen? You can't guarantee anything. You stepped away once and look what happened." That afternoon, North Star's board voted to remove Bryce as interim CEO and reinstated Charles as active chairman. Press release was carefully worded. Leadership transition to ensure operational continuity during period of strategic realignment. Corporate speak for. We fired the boss's son before he sank the ship. I spent weekends setting up Hudson Security Consulting, rented small office downtown, had business cards printed, registered with State Business Bureau, nothing fancy, just professional. Monday morning, my phone started ringing. First call was from Steve Rodriguez at Advanced Components. "Jerry, heard you're consulting now. We've got 4 clients asking about compliance verification services. Interested?" Second call was from Rebecca at Secure Vault. "Jerry, our other defense contractor clients are nervous about their compliance status. Can you do audits?" By Wednesday, I had 7 clients signed and 4 more scheduled for consultation. Word travels fast in federal contracting world, especially when major company implodes over compliance issues. North Star struggled for months. Charles managed to stabilize operations, but Pentagon contract was permanently lost. They had to lay off 120 people and sell their government division to stay solvent. Bryce disappeared from local business scene. Last I heard, he was running blockchain startup in Austin, telling people he was digital transformation specialist. 8 months later, I was sitting in my expanded office reviewing proposals for $60 million federal consulting contract when Patricia called. "Jerry, Charles Westbrook is here. Says he wants to hire Hudson Security Consulting for compliance oversight." I looked out my window at North Star building across street. Still there, still operating, but smaller now. Humbled, "Tell him I'll call him back," I said. "I'm booked solid for next 8 months. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being too busy to return phone calls from people who thought you were disposable. Look, maybe you're reading this because you've been there. Maybe some kid with an MBA told you your experience was legacy thinking. Maybe they called you dead weight while they chased the latest business fad. Here's what I learned. Your expertise has value even when people can't see it, especially when they can't see it. The systems you built, the relationships you maintained, the knowledge you accumulated, that's not baggage, that's infrastructure. And when someone pulls out the wrong piece, the whole thing comes down. You don't have to get mad about it. You don't have to fight it. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let incompetence reveal itself. Then be ready when they realize what they've lost.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.
Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to.
There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.